The thing I would say is, when you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, but life, that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. You can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing, is to shake off this erroneous notion that life is there and you're just going to live in it, versus embrace it, change it, improve it, make your mark upon it. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Are you getting it? My biological mother was a young, unwed graduate student, and she decided to put me up for adoption.
Baby is born, the parents look and say, nah, we're not interested in this one.
She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates, so everything was all set for me to be adopted at birth by a lawyer and his wife.
Why do people who are adopted feel like they were rejected instead of selected?
Except that when I popped out, they decided at the last minute that they really wanted a girl. So my parents, who were on a waiting list, got a call in the middle of the night asking, "We've got an unexpected baby boy. Do you want him?" They said, "Of course." My biological mother found out later that my mother had never graduated from college and that my father had never graduated from high school. She refused to sign the final adoption papers.
My mother said she refused to love me for the first year. You know, in case they had to give me back.
You can't refuse to love someone, Steve.
Yeah.
She only relented a few months later when my parents promised that I would go to college. This was the start in my life.
It's having no control. You find out you're out of the loop when the most crucial events in your life were set in motion.
We gotta put in the hours and make something great.
Yeah, but we have a hard date on this software, and I'm sorry, but adding pretty fonts is not gonna change that.
If you don't share our enthusiasm and care for the vision of this company.
No. It's just, I'm not understanding.
Get out.
What?
Get your shit and get out. You're done.
What are you gonna fire me?
No! I already fired you! Why are you still here?
I was very lucky. I had a father named Paul who was a pretty remarkable man and worked very hard and was kind of a genius with his hands. And he had a workbench out in the garage where, when I was about 5 or 6, he sectioned off a little piece of it and said, "Steve, this is your workbench now."
6 years ago, working in this garage, Jobs and a high school classmate quit their positions at large electronic companies and, using tiny silicon chips, built this small computer board.
It really was very good for me. You know, he spent a lot of time with me teaching me how to build things, take things apart, put things back together. And one of the things that he touched upon was electronics. He'd encountered electronics a lot in automobiles and other things that he would fix. So he showed me the rudiments of electronics, and I got very interested in that. I remember reading an article when I was about 12 years old where they measured the efficiency of locomotion for all these species on planet Earth. How many kilocalories did they expend to get from point A to point B? And the condor one came in at the top of the list, surpassed everything else. And humans came in about a third of the way down the list, which was not such a great showing for the crown of creation.
The most efficient animal on the planet is a condor. The most inefficient animals on the planet are humans.
And but somebody there had the imagination to test the efficiency of a human riding a bicycle. Human riding a bicycle blew away the condor, all the way off the top of the list. And it made a really big impression on me that we humans are tool builders, and that we can fashion tools that amplify these inherent abilities that we have to spectacular magnitudes. And so for me, a computer has always been a bicycle of the mind, something that takes us far beyond our inherent abilities.
But a human with a bicycle becomes the most efficient animal. And the right computer, a friendly, easy computer that isn't an eyesore but rather sits on your desk with the beauty of a tensor lamp. The right computer will be a bicycle for the mind.
But today, for the first time ever, I'd like to let Macintosh speak for itself.
I introduce a man who's been like a father to me, Steve Jobs.
It's the Industrial Revolution. No more decks, no more mainframes. That changes everything.
It's pretty cool, I guess.
Yeah, just a real-time display of current operations. Look,
This is freedom. This is freedom to create and to do and to build and as artists, as individuals.
Look, you're overreacting. Even if you were developing this for freaks like us, and I doubt you are, nobody wants to buy a computer. Nobody.
How does somebody know what they want if they've never even seen it?
And Steve was he was a leader. He was always trying to be one of those special few people in the world, the few that take the steps forward, and a Newton. He spoke of Newton and Shakespeare and things like that. And I know that he really wanted to be one of those people, but he wanted to find formulas to find a company and sell things. So every time I designed something really cute, Steve would come by and say, "I know how we can sell it." So we were always a partnership, selling my little project.
What's that?
Oh, that. It's a computer terminal board I'm working on. Hooks up to the TV for the display.
People would come to me and I would design products for them for free. And once a year, Steve Jobs would come into town and say, "That's a neat thing you built just for fun. We got to sell this. We can sell it." And he turned them all into money. Homebrew Computer Club had a lot of college professors and academics talking about the social revolution that was going to come when we had our own computer. And that eventually led to me building a computer, giving it away for free. Steve didn't know the computer existed. He came into town, he saw the crowd around me, and he said, "We got to sell a part of this. We can build it for $20 and sell it for $40."
This is perfect.
Good, well, it'd be good to see you building something.
The summer that I built the Apple I computer, I was totally aware that a revolution was close to starting. I had given away my designs for the Apple I for free. Steve Jobs came into town. He'd pop into town, see what I was up to, the latest thing I designed for fun, and then he'd somehow turn them into some money for both of us. Paul Terrell, he owned a store. So Steve Jobs went in to sell him some of our little boards that we built for $20. It cost us $250 to build maybe. We'd sell it for $500. And then the retail price was $666.66 because I, as a mathematician, like repeating digits.
Once was up till 4 a.m. for many moons. And we got it working. We showed some of our friends. Immediately, everybody wanted one. We were designing the Apple II, and we really had some much higher ambitions for the Apple II. Woz's ambitions were he wanted to add color graphics. My ambition was that it was very clear to me that while there were a bunch of hardware hobbyists that could assemble their own computers or at least take our board and add the transformers for the power supply and the case and the keyboard and go get et cetera, go get the rest of the stuff. For every one of those, there were 1,000 people that couldn't do that but wanted to mess around with programming, software hobbyists. And so my dream for the Apple II was to sell the first real packaged computer, packaged personal computer, where you didn't have to be a hardware hobbyist at all. And so combining both of those dreams, we actually designed the product. And I found a designer and we designed the packaging and everything. And we wanted to make it out of plastic and we had the whole thing ready to go. but we needed some money for tooling the case and things like that. We needed a few $100,000, and this was way beyond our means. So I went looking for some venture capital. So I called Mike on the phone, and Mike came over, and Mike had retired at about 30 or 31 from Intel. He was a product manager there and gotten a little bit of stock. And so Mike said, okay, I'll invest after a few weeks. And I said, no, we don't want your money, we want you. So we convinced Mike to actually throw in with us as an equal partner. And the three of us went off and we took this design that was virtually done with the Apple II and tooled it up and announced it a few months later at the West Coast Computer Fair. My recollection is we stole the show.
On December 12, 1980, Apple went public. Its 4.6 million shares of stock opened at $22 and sold out in minutes.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
That is when Steve starts creating the Macintosh. There are no screws on the Mac. You cannot open it. And as they were getting ready to finish it, near time to ship it, Steve is looking at everything, every icon, every curve. And he looks at the circuit board. He said, no, this isn't beautiful enough. The chips are not lined up exactly right to make it. And they say, well, wait a minute. You made it so there are no screws. You can't open this up even. Nobody will ever see it. Nobody will ever know. And he says, but you will know. And he was building a fence with Steve one day when Steve was about 9 or 10 years old. And Paul Jobs said, we have to make the back of the fence just as beautiful and as well done as the front. And Steve says, well, why? Nobody will ever see it. Nobody will ever know. And his father said, yes, but you will know.
So I decided to drop out. The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting. Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them.
And then he makes them all sign their names, and they engrave their names. He says real artists sign their work. And engraved on the inside of the Macintosh, where nobody can get to it, is the 32 engineers on the Mac team with Stephen P. Jobs in the middle, because that's what he had, was this artistic perfection. Now, the artistic perfection goes with the temperament of an artist.
Please, you have to tell me why it's so important for it to say hello.
Hollywood, they made computers scary things. See how this reminds you of a friendly face? But the disk slot is a goofy grin, and it needs to say hello.
I'd like to let Macintosh speak for itself.
Hello, I am Macintosh. It sure is great to get out of that bag.
The thing that led to the huge disagreement when the Macintosh office failed, Steve went into a deep depression over it because this was really important to him.
You're issuing contradictory instructions, you're insubordinate, you make people miserable, our top engineers are fleeing to Sun, Dell, HP.
And Steve was discouraged. And so Steve came to me and he said, I want to drop the price of the Macintosh and I want to move the advertising shift a large portion of it away from the Apple II over to the Mac. And I said, Steve, it's not going to make any difference. The reason the Mac is not selling has nothing to do with the price or with the advertising. And if you do that, we risk throwing the company into a loss.
Our only hope is the Apple II, which is stagnating because of its soon-to-be obsolete DOS.
And he just totally disagreed with me.
I can't put it more simply than this. We need to put our resources into updating the Apple II.
By taking resources from the Mac.
It's failing. That's a fact.
It's overpriced.
There's no evidence that it's...
Find the evidence.
And so I said, well, I'm going to go to the board. And he said, I don't believe you'll do it. I said, watch me.
I fucking dare you.
I'm perfectly willing to hand in my resignation tonight, but if you want me to stay, you can't have Steve.
Fact that in 1997, Apple was essentially a broken company. It was 90 days from insolvency, meaning that it was in serious danger of running out of cash.
What can you do to convince me I wouldn't be aboard the Titanic? Because I know how you feel about Apple. What next could never be.
So I got one last thing. I got back to Apple along with several other people 2.5 years ago. What we found was a great company that needed a little bit of help, a lot of incredibly talented people. And so I'm not going to be changing any of my duties at either Pixar or Apple, but I'm pleased to announce today that I'm going to drop the interim title. Well, now we know, because this is the new iPod Mac. Really bright. It's a gorgeous display. And it's got an iSight camera built in. An iPod. A phone. And an internet communicator. An iPod. A phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone.